Okay, so we do actually have on the line then someone who knows a lot more about the changes in the patch notes. It is Vance Serennia. Are you there, mate?
Yeah, I'm
Hey, Serennia. The last interview we did with Happy Minty, I started off by asking what kind of animal he felt like, and it sort of gave the interview a bit of a twist. He said he felt like a rhinoceros that sort of identified that he felt kind of strong and big after just being signed to Complexity. What kind of animal do you feel like today?
That's a strange question, but I guess I could answer with a fox, because we're pretty sly with our moves and our decisions. And
I like it. All right then, Serennia the Fox. Let's talk a little about you. Firstly, congratulations with your 2 new teammates. Obviously, if people don't know, you've joined up with SCK, Sick, and also Reels. How did that come about?
That actually happened when it was after Philadelphia ended. Apparently, Reels, like his teammates, were Toes and Scotty, and they both basically had to go their own ways. I believe Scotty didn't have any interest in playing tournaments anymore, and Toes wanted to play with other people or something. So he approached me about trying to form a new team, and we were trying to just basically figure out who would be the best third, because there weren't many good healers available at the time. And then out of nowhere, basically, SCK, he approached me about it and said that his contract with Team Pandemic had run up, and that he was looking for a competitive team to play with on LAN and at tournaments, and he wanted to basically just win. And that seemed like a perfect opportunity for us, because I think he's like the best paladin in the game right now. And
really?
Obviously,
wow.
we pursued it from there, and it worked out really well.
And you mentioned he had a contract with Team Pandemic. I wasn't aware of that. He didn't really make many tournament appearances. Do you know what the terms were of his contract?
WSTG tournaments. He won at least 5 of them, I believe.
Right, but were those the events when Pandemic was bringing...
That was season 1, wasn't it? When
Were those the events when Pandemic was bringing quite a few players along and wasn't mixing up for lineups?
On the team.
So he would just drop in and out for different setups.
So you're playing Paladin, Hunter, Death Knight. Firstly, let's talk about you, because you've changed over from Warrior to Death Knight. Are you enjoying the game more? Why the change, and is it working out?
Oh, I definitely don't regret the decision at all to move to switch classes. I feel that even though there are a lot of quote-unquote bad Death Knights out there, and a lot of people do feel that the class is too really easy to play, I feel like it's one of those classes that there's a lot of difference between an average Death Knight and a really good Death Knight. It has a really high skill cap on the class, and you can really notice the difference between a skilled one and just the average one. And I feel that going from a Warrior to a Death Knight is the best transition you can make, because the hardest parts of learning a Death Knight are knowing when to stay offensive and when to play defensive and when to peel for your teammates and things like that. And I think that it was definitely a good move, and I don't regret it at all. I think that the Warrior class especially is still pretty narrow tracks for Blizzard, and I don't really see that much of a feature for it right now.
Yeah, I felt the same with Warrior, and it was hard to differentiate between a good player and a great player. Everyone was just kind of bashing on people. Okay.
Now, looking a little bit back at your history as a WoW player, you've attended several tournaments in your career, several of our global challenges. One tournament in particular, Worldwide Invitational in Paris, you did really well with Inflame and Nilio. I saw a couple of flamers or trolls on Game Riot and stuff saying that you got carried by those guys. What would you say in response?
I actually do attribute our success a lot into Inflame, not because he was the best player there, but he's a great player, no doubt. But I feel that our success there was because we were flexible with our teams that we could play with Inflame on the team, because he could play a Warlock and he could play a Warrior, and we had never had a player before on our charter, on our team, that could also play a Warrior, which was huge back then in season 3, season 4, or on the tournaments, because Warriors were so key to have. And although Nilio did try to play a Warrior sometimes, he was much better on a Rogue. And with Inflame, as he could play a Warlock, so we could play with Roguelock Druid, or he could also play a Warrior really well, so we could play double melee, and we could basically beat everything. And I feel that if we had more practice as Roguelock Druid, then we would definitely beat Council of Mages there. But unfortunately, we had no practice. But he was a huge part of the success that we had.
Now, you're a pretty hardcore WoW player, pretty much as hardcore as they come, and I know what it takes to really consistently perform at the top level and sustain the kind of ratings you do. It must be a lot of time investment. It would be really interesting to know if you could sort of describe an average day in your life, in the life of Serennia.
Well, I go to class 4 days a week, but it usually ends pretty early, around like noon. And then when I get back from class, I don't know, I usually just like have lunch and then just, you know, log on and see what's going on. And if teammates want to, like if my teammates are on, then we'll play arena. Like, as you know, well, a lot of people know recently my teams got reset. So we've been trying to get new teams back up. But yeah, it's pretty much a joke on our battle group. I'm not really concerned about it. Like, we got back from 1500 5v5, like they reset our 5v5 to 1500, and then we got back to rank 1 in 2 nights of playing, so I'm not really concerned about getting my teams back up.
Yeah, I want to ask a little bit about your setups then. So you're playing Paladin Hunter Death Knight. Why that setup? Do you see it as the most powerful setup at the moment?
That's going to be our main lineup for tournaments, yep. most likely. I feel that it's really strong right now. Like, I think Hunters and Death Knights to an extent are obviously overpowered in some regards, but even like if they did tone down like explosive shot damage and things like that, I still think it's our strongest comp and one of the strongest comps because it has so much versatility. Like, Death Knights almost have to be paired with a class that has a healing reduction for the most part because you just don't put out enough pressure otherwise. But like the combination of Death Knights with the amount of magical damage that they can do, which is important because it ignores armor, so it makes like anyone a viable target, as well as like the CC that a survival hunter provides with, you know, scatter shot, freezing shot, wyvern sting, and MS most importantly. It works really well together, as well as like, you know, death gripping a target into line of sight to keep in line of sight for the hunter to DPS and stuff like that. It's definitely one of the strongest right now.
What do you see kind of, I mean, you must have problems though. I mean, I expect you guys are doing absolutely fantastically. I haven't checked out your armory lately. I did actually a week or so ago when we were talking about you and Reels moving over to Hunter. But what do you have problems with Paladin Hunter, DK?
Well, I think any Paladin team will have trouble with Warlocks, and I think, like, especially with the new Arena Realms coming up soon with Blizzard, I think, like, everyone keeps saying, oh, congrats, you know, the best Paladin Hunter DK team out there. Well, I think Warlocks are going to be a big surprise for Paladins, because, like, a really well-played Warlock team can absolutely wreck a Paladin team. Yeah. For example, like, I know Zom, Inflame, and Forte,
Rogue, Warlock,
the Euro Realms right now, they're playing Paladin, Warlock, Rogue right now, and they're doing extremely well with that, and they're like dominating the bracket. And I think that Warlocks definitely are a very strong counter to Paladins right now, and, you know, properly played, I think they can definitely win a tournament, especially a ladder like on the tournament round. We have obviously, you know, plans to deal with Warlock teams, but I think that a well-played Warlock team can definitely beat out a Paladin Hunter DK. Okay, you're not going to tell us how you plan to deal with him, are you? Well, I'm sure people can figure it out, but I won't go into specifics right now. Okay. So everyone's running with a Paladin at the moment. Do you see, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about patch notes with you, because I'm sure you want your say, and a lot of people will be listening. But do you see, like, priests coming in maybe a little bit later? I mean, self-cast penance, is it not really a big deal? Well, priests definitely got a lot of buffs, and they also, to my knowledge, from what I've been told, since I have, like, you know, some sources, that they're getting a lot more buffs too. Ooh. They're not done with the changes on priests, for sure. Like, I won't go into too many details, but their mana return, like, is going to get a lot better to compete with, like, you know, Water Shield, Blessing of Wisdom, Divine Plea, things like that. They're going to get a lot better in that regard also. And there's also, you know, more buffs that they haven't announced. But I do. How come you know more than me, Serennia? What the hell's going on? I'm meant to be the guy in contact with the big people. What are you doing? I can't go into details on that, but priests are going to get a lot of love, and I think that they will be a lot better than they are now. But I think that, like, Paladins will stay, you know, as strong as they are right now in terms of, like, how hard they are to focus. Yeah. And a lot of people also neglect